everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reluctant Hero Podcast. My name is Pauline. I'm the peak performance and creativity coach I have been doing for quite some time. And this podcast is my attempt to bring more inspiration into the world. I interview guests on their stories of their own hero's journey, as we all are on. And I ask them what has been keeping them reluctant from stepping onto that hero's path. What challenges and adversaries and opponents have they been meeting along the way? What kind of guides have they encountered? And how have they solved the reluctance to continue and show up fully as themselves? I believe that we have innate creativity within us, and sometimes we are reluctant to fully express it ourselves authentically, express that creativity fully. And so I have been collecting stories to compile and share it, what has worked for others to unlock their full potential. We like to talk about this full potential that we have within us and we're not quite expressing throughout our life. So I've been on a mission to search and find those aspects other people have found useful to unlock their full potential on their own journey of hero's journey. So today we have a guest, Roshni. She is an incredible woman. She's a healer. She's a coach. I will let her introduce herself, but you will find a lot of value in her approach to different things. And we're going to talk about bunch of topics that pertain to hero's journey and maybe spirituality and maybe archetypes. We'll see how it goes. But Roshni, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Pauline, for first of all inviting me to join you, because I found immediate synergy with you, and I was so excited. I buzzed into the next day, like the energy was great. So I'm very grateful to you for meeting with me here today and creating and co-creating together, which is one of the joys of being an entrepreneur and also a solopreneur as well. And it's so important to recognize that we are all on a journey, and my journey is very unique to my path. And my background is in teaching. And so I trained as a teacher and I worked in the education profession for 22 years. COVID turned me upside down and flipped me right side up and threw me against the wall and burnt me out. And I didn't want to feel like that. I wasn't an effective human during that time. I was in survival mode, like a lot of people were. Everything just stopped. And so during that time, I fell very sick during COVID. So I was in and out of hospitals. I was going through the darkest points of my life. I was going through shadows. I felt every human emotion. Now we complain that sometimes that there's a lot of emotions and people are too sensitive. I'm an empath. I felt everything. I thought, and I also decided that it was not my time to go. It was my time to stay and to choose better for myself. And it was during that time that I embraced my healer gifts, which is energy work, which is knowledge of and wisdom of holistic healing and how it can work in tandem with traditional methods in order to help you to find your best self and best and highest well-being. I scaffolded a journey of wellness for myself during this time. And I used my gifts of communication, of healing, of self-advocacy, of acceptance, especially of what I was going through, which I'm a little shy to talk about. But I accepted that during this time, that illness that I was going through, it was showing me more than what it was. I was going beyond that illness and saying, you know what? Okay, you're going to show me illness, bring it on, but I'm going to look towards a better way. And so this is where my company, StillFire Healing, was born out of this darkness. So my background is definitely in education. I have a master's degree in education in women's identity, and I have the utmost pleasure to I'm a constant learner. I'm always learning, but I've also embraced a lot of my healing gifts. So I'm a Usui Reiki master. I do emotional freedom technique. I counsel women with their diabetic teenagers. So I have a lot of different modalities that I can pull on, but generally in order to lift women up.
Wow, that is a powerful story. Anybody who experienced COVID, we know how it was. Everything was disrupted, things that could have broke, and everything changed over. It seems overnight, but it's actually changed over 2 years and it's still
Yeah.
continuing to change. We
Yes.
have been put path towards on a path towards shifting ourselves and our world in a way in which we did not predict we would need to do, in ways that we weren't quite prepared for. And now we are on here, we are on this journey, and there is no going back. No matter how much we've been trying to get back to the old systems and old ways of doing, it just doesn't seem to be working anymore. And everybody can feel it, I believe.
Yes. You said it so well. People are scrambling to go back to what we had because that's what it was like before COVID. That yes, everything's working. But I remember one of my friends, her son and my son were in the same school. He eventually pulled her son out and homeschooled him during the time of COVID. And I asked her, I said, why? He needs that extra support at school. Keep him there. She said to me, Roshni, I am missing the old ways. I want to go back to this, to this, to this, and to this. She named four things that she was missing. She goes, what happened to the days when we went to school? And I said, those days are gone. The systems that we've set up for humans don't serve humans. They serve egos. We have to move away from that. There's nothing wrong with the ego. The ego gets a bad rap, but the ego has to be trained for and to be a servant to the heart. We cannot use the ego to help humans. Ego is and can be very dangerous. It shows the darkness that everyone has it, including myself. But in order to integrate the ego, we need to make sure that we look at it as a teacher, as a servant of a greater good, which is everyone has this, which is heart-centered changes and looking at humans from the heart perspective, not from the mind all the time. The challenge I think that comes from this is that people are, and ego is a great teacher of this, is fearful, right? It brings in fear. I don't want to do this. You don't need to do this. Pauline, you don't need to start your own business. You are not doing this. So this mindset of ego is a great teacher, but it's only your mind. You can train your mind. People have talked about this for years. Even the most famous people still talk about it. You know, the Deepak Chopras of the world, Anthony Robbins. Change your mindset, change your life. It's easier said than done, but people must choose. And the biggest responsibility people have, Pauline, is to work on themselves. You have to do the work. You cannot survive on your ego and sustain it. You need the ego to survive as a child, right? You come out and you're like, oh, I see. Yes, I'm here. I'm on Earth. Oh, well, I'm not receiving a lot of love from this end. Okay, I'll go and get it from here. I'm gonna go. Oh, I'm hungry. There's no food in the house. Okay, well, I'm gonna go and find food in this way. The ego helps you to survive and put those pieces together. But eventually, your soul is going to knock on you at a certain point in your life and say, no, you are walking this path, but there's something else bigger than what you've been shown. And everyone has that. This is not, it might sound idealistic, but everybody has that basis of that soul gold. So my background in Ahava theory is like this. Everybody's soul has this component of gold in it. What are we meant to do? What is our soul's purpose in this lifetime? In that way, once you find it, you have to do the work. But once you find it, your ego will then become tamer and become more of a servant to what your soul's purpose needs to be. Sounds idealistic, maybe, but I don't think so because it is when you take a conscious step to your evolution, the universe will conspire.
100%, I agree. Integration is the key word that you
Yes.
mentioned. We do grow up with a certain understandings and certain patterns in order to survive. As small children, everybody develops a certain survival pattern
Yes.
or a bunch.
Yes.
And throughout the life, those patterns eventually they stop working.
Mhm.
And then there comes a time when the person has to take responsibility for having those patterns in the first place and not replace and misplace the blame onto somebody else for putting them on them. They have to take responsibility for doing the things in their own life and then shift it by integrating things that they essentially disowned in themselves or denied or repressed. That is, I think that's been the biggest thing that has been coming out in the last 4 years. All the people's repressed emotions, all the denied aspects of themselves, and all the patterns that are no longer valuable or viable have started being showing up for people to be dealt with, to be integrated. And to
Yes.
the extent to which they can see them and accept them for what they are, accept themselves and integrate it, really determines their ability to move forward. And the people who have not been ready to integrate, they want to go back to the past because there was blindness. You didn't have to see a lot of things. You could just live in a peaceful ignorance. But no more. We cannot live in the ignorance anymore. Everything is out in the open right now.
Yes, I love that. I love that phrase you said, peaceful ignorance. Like people, the ego likes that, right? Oh, I'll just be here. It's comfortable. And I know even Zach talks about this, that comfort, right? But once you start cracking open, the ego gets uncomfortable, right? And it's going to say to you, you don't need to do that. What what do you mean you're an Ahava healer? What do you mean you're going to do distance Reiki for someone in Scotland? And I just tell it to quiet. I said, that's who I am. And I literally, it's like a quiet, you stay here, be good, and I'm moving forward. And it sounds funny, but that's what I do. I stopped blaming my external environment. I stopped blaming my family, how I was brought up. Everything is in in my in my humble opinion written for you. You just have to open the book and read it. Everything's written for you. Just open the book, find a spark of curiosity about who you are, just one, and that could set the world on fire. What lights your fire? What are you passionate about? What brings you joy? For me these days, I'm noticing that talking to like-minded people brings me immense joy because we're feeding each other soul food. I wrote about it on LinkedIn a few times in a post, just that feeding of each other because people are evolving. That brings me joy. Writing, Reiki, holistic healing, serving others in their holistic healing is a huge component of my passion. But going back to peaceful ignorance, yes, like once you start getting uncomfortable, the one thing that has to come through is faith. And even if you don't believe in God, you still need faith to trust that you are being guided in a way that is for your best and highest good. You must have faith. Sometimes you feel, especially as a business owner, like you see a bit of, you're like scrambling in the dark. when I first started. I'm looking around, and my ego was laughing at me. It was dark, and the ego was like, see, told you, go back to teaching 32 kids and dealing with their parents. See, go back. And I said, no. So I kept going and I kept going. And I used emotional freedom technique, to tap out any negative emotions that I was going through. And I've done it consistently, especially in the last 3 weeks, just tapping them out, being gentle with ourselves. I believe too that people are extremely hard on themselves because they are stuck in their patterns and they don't understand how their patterns are actually serving their mindset and consistently giving them a negative mindset. That's not who you are. You come into the world not with all that negative mindset. Your conditioning, your programming, your ancestral programming, your generational programming, however you want to look at it, is keeping you stuck. You do have the power to break those. Everyone does.
Yeah, what you're saying is very powerful. And I actually have noticed that myself over the last 4 years as I started on this journey. And I've noticed the two sides to that aspect. Being in the community of like-minded individuals definitely has always been uplifting, has always been inspiring. And being within that kind of environment where everybody understands each other and everybody is on the same page and they're moving along doing the similar things with a similar purpose, that has always been very rewarding to be part of. But then at the same time, I have found that that community or that circle or that accumulation of people have been very different from the rest of the world. And in a way, it's like you are spending time reinforcing your own beliefs with the people who understand and think on the same wavelength. And sometimes it's possible to start wondering, well, is that the reality? Because you're just been reinforcing the same types of thinking as others and validating that. But that doesn't sometimes it doesn't translate in other world and other people don't understand it. So it makes you wonder, am I crazy? Am I just in some kind of a closed loop bubble? Have you experienced that?
I have actually last week because it's like like-minded souls will always find each other. I do think that. Like-minded souls will never miss each other. And I do believe when you're creating these little spaces, it is a bubble like. It's like a reality that's being created, almost like Eckhart Tolle talks about the new earth. That's what it feels like. But then when you step out into the matrix, where's your people? You're almost like separated. There's like this duality that still exists. But I do think that duality can be bridged by just being who you are in the world. I do believe that when you step outside that bubble, you're just as we are here, we are raising our vibrations, our auric energy as well. And you bring those vibrations out into the world, which, if we don't, I mean, the joke stands is that, people who do yoga and meditation, we should just sit up on top of a mountain and just la la la, that's my world, right? Because that's safe. But we still have to live here. The Dalai Lama still has to live here on on a 3D earth and in that matrix. So I think that the vibration to bridge from the bubble and into the matrix thinking doesn't require lots of effort, but it does require to be your authentic self. And you're going to draw people to you, which it's uncanny, especially after COVID, how many people just come and talk to me and tell me their stories. You draw those people towards you. And while you may not invite them back to your bubble, definitely if there's an energetic exchange, you've done your job.
Yes,
Yeah.
and actually, I believe that being a yogi on top of the mountain doesn't serve anybody. It's easy to
No,
be, it's easy to be at peace when you're on top of the mountain in the cave and nobody
exactly.
bothers you and you just have yourself to
Exactly.
worry about. The biggest
Exactly.
challenge really comes from being in the world, in the darkness, in all of the old patterns that are still present, and maintaining the positivity and maintaining the inspiration and still presenting yourself authentically without falling into the patterns of requiring validation from the rest of the world.
Exactly. And I think, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an angel either. I haven't just dropped from heaven and I'm positive all the time. I was stomping around my house on Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday was better. My voice was like, I was angry, but, I'm not a victim of my emotions. I'm a witness. There's a difference, right? If you're witnessing them, you're like, okay, what's actually going on here? I was overwhelmed. I was feeling tired. My son had injured his foot. So everything was imploding and I was taking everything on, especially whatever cosmically was happening. So
Yeah, exactly.
there's no perfection to this journey. It's going to go like this, and you have to be accepted and just get on that roller coaster and just ride along. Just go through it. Nothing is going to remain the same at each given day. You have to find in Buddhist philosophy, we say dharma, right? The flow of your life. You are being led somewhere, right? And
Yeah, absolutely. Accepting the negative and positive emotions is the key, because we oftentimes refuse to accept a lot of aspects of ourselves. And what does it result in? Well, they persist even more and
for
cause even
sure.
more distortion. And what I found and noticed in the last 3, 4 years is that a lot of people have waken up to that feeling that there's more to life, there's more to themselves, and they stepped onto this path of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship. But another thing that came with that is, I think a lot of people didn't realize how actually difficult it is. And so it's been another separate journey in itself. Yes, you do have gifts, you do have purpose, something bigger to follow and achieve, but the process of actually making it happen, I think people did not really understand how. And I personally was not prepared for the difficulty of this journey as it been unfolding.
Yes. I think too, I was prepared. I knew innately that this is what I needed to do. What happens to me, and I think uh, the idea of being gentle on yourself, it has to be at the top of one's list, especially when you're stepping into the unknown. You are, society has told you to be a certain way, and you're stepping outside of the conforms of that, those paradigms, those systems that has told you, yes, you are A, B, C, D. Once you step out, you don't know who you are. So, what's important at that point? Self care, inner work, connecting with like minded people, being gentle on your mindset, and also having that faith that you're doing the best that you can with what you've been given for this time. And you're not meant to do it alone. You are not meant to wallow in your home office and say, my gosh, what am I supposed to be doing today? There is, if you can cultivate this, an ability for flow to happen. And I know you would be aware of this as well. You build that awareness around you. What is it truly? What am I actually being called to do today? Where am I being nudged? Where are my whispers? Where is that supposed to be going? Sometimes I get 400 whispers a day, and I'm like, okay, I have to prioritize. But that flow does exist. And the key component, though, Pauline, is awareness, right? You can't close your eyes and expect to move forward. You have to open them. You have to open your eyes and say, what am I capable of? And doing the work, right? You have to do the inner work.
Absolutely. I can talk about flow for hours.
I
I
knew you could.
It's something that really brings me a lot of excitement. And what I see now, 4 years into this journey, is that there's flow on different levels. There's a major flow of life that we are part of the flow of a river of life. There's also individual flow state, the microflow. There's a constant gradient of these flow experience. There's a group flow, there's individual flow. Some of it has been mapped by science, some of it has been described by spiritual teachings. There's all of that. But the point is, all of that is moving us in the direction of expansion and growth. That
Right.
all of those things are being described from different perspectives, but the whole point is to evolve as a human being, to learn and to accept a lot of things, but also to learn how to express ourselves fully and authentically. And that's what the why is, and that's what understanding and awareness that you're talking about is all about. So it is a journey of river of life, wherever we like it or not, wherever we are prepared for it or not. Uncertainty and faith are really kind of the two constants in this journey.
Yes, I agree. I love that you classified the idea of there's like a macro and micro flow. And I think that's really important, especially for women, because I think we are conditioned in a way that we have to be obtuse about all the roles that we play: entrepreneur, mother, lover, healer, community supporter. We do it all because we have that underlying flow within us. That's innate. We are creators. But sometimes it's not practically sustainable. But if you find a microflow in the day, that's amazing. That means that you are still tapped into your creativity, but maybe today it's a little bit lighter. And I think that helps take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit, especially giving a woman space to kind of breathe through her day. Because I think no matter whatever roles we play, there's always going to be dips and turns teaching you that you might need to do more, teaching you might need to do less, but you're always expanding and breathing it through. You're always expanding. Um, and you have to find a way to give yourself space to do that. And sometimes it's setting boundaries, sometimes it's creative aspects like arts. I write quite a bit, just stream of consciousness writing, just dumping everything out into a book every night. It's great. It's really good. And sometimes it might be a therapist to help you. But the point is just flow is always there. It's always there. You just have to choose it. And if you want to put the foot on the gas pedal one day, go ahead and follow it. And if you don't the next day, it's okay. Sometimes I don't take my own advice, but I'm learning to.
We are all a reminder service for each other with the way that we speak and the work that we produce. And there's a lot to be said about the role of women in the current society. And I just want to
Right.
briefly look at the aspect because I do love exploring this dichotomy of masculine versus feminine. And
Mm.
I have noticed that women have been called at large to make a difference in the world with their healing gifts, with their innate flow that they are able to access as being women. And there is a need for that, no matter what we think or judge it to be. It's very chaotic. The feminine nature is very chaotic, but it also has healing gifts. So I wonder, what is your perception about how feminine is now affecting the masculine in the world on a grander scale?
This is like this topic I could talk, especially to a like-minded individual for like 80 years. Like it's so fascinating. And the idea of feminine energy and masculine energy, it's not new. It's not a new concept. It's in sacred texts, even in some of the, and especially in Hindu civilization, because I have a South Asian background, they have deities who show masculine and feminine energies. They show a male and female figure coming together and integrating, showing light and dark, showing ego and love, showing these things. Now, the challenge now, the perception that like what I see now is that women are stepping into this more so these days, into this feminine energy. Why? Because we can. Why? Because we are being shown ways and returning back to the wilding, if that's a word, the wilding of our spirits, the wilding of our souls that were repressed, even in the Salem witch trials and the witch hunts of the medieval times. All of that wounding from even historical concepts is being healed. And every woman has that capability, depending on the gifts that she's been given. They are rewilding themselves to step forward in order to hold space for the masculine. So, what does this mean? The masculine has to also adopt feminine energy, right? That integration, as we spoke about at the beginning of the conversation, that creative piece, arts, moving into the heart space. Women are feelers anyway. We can hold space for a masculine, but we are not going to be wounded, continually wounded by ego and masculine energy. It doesn't serve anyone any good. We cannot move in that direction anymore. We must find a balance. So, in a sense, when women are stepping forward, and why is that happening now? One of my friends is a ceremonialist. She also thinks, and I also agree with her, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, that women are actually inherently connected to the earth. And if we're wounded, the earth is wounded. So, from a spiritual aspect, if a woman is working from her wounded state or from a darker feminine quality, and she is repressing her gifts, she's repressing her flow, looking at the darker parts of herself rather than the feminine parts of herself. So the healer, the mother, the lover, the mystic, the community supporter, all of these things can help society. And whether it's 3 women that you help, or 3 men, or both, or 3,000, doesn't matter. The job right now for women is to hold space and to connect with each other so that we can lift up a collective, support the collective healing. Because I think too that women are essentially healing themselves as best as they can with what they've been given. And it's not an easy journey, but the time is now. And by lifting each other up, I think would have long-term implications for actual systems that we have set up here.
Yes, I agree. I have noticed that definitely a correlation between women and connection to earth and the healing aspect. Women in general, I have noticed, have been called to step into the qualities of the feminine, which are represented by acceptance, forgiveness, flexibility, creativity, all the things that allow and accept. And along those lines, acceptance of the wounding is also included, because in order to heal anything, you have to first accept that it is there. And a lot of that has been going backwards into the generational wounds as well, because it must be the time for that now, because there has been a lot of stuff that happened in the past, which has been recorded in our collective DNA. And now the women have been called to express this allowance and awareness and forgiveness for everything that has passed in order to move forward. And one of the things that I have been aware of for quite some time is that there's a distinction. There's actually a presence of both within us, the light feminine and the dark feminine, as well as masculine, light masculine and the dark masculine. However, there's also mature and immature category for each. So all of those things have to coexist together. The light masculine and the dark masculine has to be integrated together. And when people have been repressing either the light or the dark aspect, that's usually when the challenges arise. So
Yeah,
now, through the awareness of the wounding, through the awareness of all the dark aspects, we are being called on to accept and integrate all those different parts of ourselves so that we can be whole. And for anybody wondering, well, what the hell do I do with all of that? The
exactly.
feminine energy is present in everybody and only takes an intention to be more aware of that aspect and to
Perfect.
allow and to forgive. The forgiveness could be the very first step for anybody looking to step onto this journey of feminine energy or healing themselves or affecting their reality in a better way.
Yes. I so you again so beautifully said these, and that integrating sounds not achievable. It's nothing to attain integration, but you do set, like you said, an intention towards it. If you are a male, for example, and you're trying to integrate female energy, it could be as simple as writing. If some, it could be as simple as moving into visual art, which is, I know, like you're in terms of that creativity, that's something that you subscribe to in your business too, like that creative aspect, right? And helping men to move towards that without judgment and without their ego slamming them, saying, knock, knock, you shouldn't be writing, you shouldn't be drawing. But this is how you achieve balance. And a defined feminine energy is always looking for equilibrium. We always look for balance. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's up and down, sometimes it's parallel. But it is there. We're a healed divine feminine and a cultivated divine feminine energy will be a master at finding that balance. And if you find the balance within yourself, that ripple effect can be reflected in your outer world.
Yes, in Eastern Taoist traditions, they have identified three centers in our essence. It's the mind center, the heart center, and the body center. And so the balance between those three aspects essentially is what we're being called on to explore right now. And integration means integrating the three centers in ourselves because we have been, for the majority of time, been living in just the mind center, the ego,
Right.
the personality, the thinking mind, and that's where the masculine approach has been happening. And what I've been hearing from a lot of people is that actually experiencing and allowing emotions is the first step for the masculine to get acquainted with the feminine energy.
Oh, I love that. Because the emotions, I don't know why emotions are given a bad rap, especially with men. When men are born, when babies are born, the boys are crying, right? They'll cry if something happens. They'll cry if they fall. I always tease my son when he was born, he never cried. He cried a little bit throughout his childhood, but not much. But he still cried, and I still welcome it. You want to come home and let out your feelings? Go right ahead. I have never told him, man up, tough it up. No, because the world is not needing hardness. The world needs softer approaches. That doesn't mean weaker. Softer energy can balance a harder energy. And that's essentially the goal, right? Men cry when they're born, women cry when they're born. I don't know and we are human beings. Humans are a part of our experience. We are meant to feel these. They are teaching us about what's happening around. They build awareness around your energy field. It gives you also survival techniques. If something is, you're feeling a little odd or you're feeling like there's something wrong, especially if you have children or if you have any loved ones around you, if something's wrong, that's a feeling. Why is that not being honored? Because society thinks it's weak. It's
I've
not wasted.
actually heard of the science experiments where people were told to repress and not experience or not feel certain emotions. And then they were asked to do some kind of physical activity, and they were found to be weaker at those physical tasks because a lot of
Wow.
energy went on to repressing those emotions.
Wow.
So
That is,
unfortunately, I can't remember what study it was, but I mean, you can even try it yourself. If you're trying to repress a certain emotion and not feel it and spend all of your energy judging it and separating yourself from it, there will be a lot less available for even expression of the physical aspects of the body. And that is really imbalance in the three centers.
yes, I love that. And even to stretch it further, repressed emotions manifest into physical ailments. Like this is not new knowledge. If you're
No, we're
going
not
to,
making it up. Everybody is
no,
aware of it right now.
yeah, like if you are feeling sad about something and you've held on to something that's happened even ancestrally, it's going to show up. And it might manifest in terms of illness, in terms of dis-ease in the body.
People don't know how to first of all, I think they're afraid of negative
Yeah,
emotions because
yeah,
they are afraid that those emotions are going to swallow them completely, and
yeah,
they don't know how to really experience them. So because of that, it's lack of awareness and lack of knowledge of what to do when the negative emotion shows up and it's overwhelming. Is it going to
yes,
persist? Is it going to stay forever? Is it going to make me depressed and not able to work? That's kind of the
yes,
thinking.
yes. And I think there's also modeling too, and certain societal structures where I come from I'm a first generation South Asian woman, and our parents very rarely showed emotion. They didn't go for therapy. They don't ask for help. We help each other, but they never sat down and say, "Hey, let's have a coffee and talk about how we're feeling." They don't do that. And me and my sister laugh about it. I told my sister too. I said, please don't let's not do that. We're the kind of the black sheep of the family. Let's talk. And she's like, okay. She loves that, right? Because there's a communication piece. Communication is so healing. Talking about what you're going through. If you talk about it, you'll worry less. You can have what's the word? Half it or divide that emotion with someone else, right? Instead of holding it all on your own, you can share it, right? But
Yes.
again, yeah,
And the communication definitely can be healing unless it creates the resistance and it creates defensiveness. In those
perfect.
cases, which we have observed a lot in the past, people
Yeah,
would bring something up which automatically would bring up defensiveness in others. And that caused people a lot of anguish in the past. So
yeah,
the communication methods also have to be changed and adjusted so that there will be
absolutely.
more acceptance. And I always refer to the technique that is used in the improvisation, which is yes and. If we start
Mm,
with yes and, it creates the opportunity for communication. If we say no but, that blocks everything and creates the resistance. So for anybody who's wondering, well, what can I do right now? Well, start agreeing and then go from there and see what happens. And another thing, if anybody's wondering, well, what am I supposed to do with these emotions? You just talked about accepting and allowing, and I still don't understand what to do about it. It's been found that chemically, the emotions only last in the body for 90 seconds. The brain creates it, it produces chemistry, the chemistry flows through the body, 90 seconds, it is kind of done. So when the emotions show up, you can actually find it in the body, put a finger on it, and observe it for 90 seconds and see
wow.
what happens. It is the easiest method to deal with it. You don't have to do anything, you just have to observe it for 90 seconds. It's a minute and a half. Everybody has a minute and a half to stop and look at themselves. So there you
I
go.
love that. It's so beautiful. I'm so happy you brought that up. That's so like it's and again, because we've created our little bubble here together, that doesn't mean we're not inaccessible. We're humans too, but you have to develop a toolkit around you. Um, 90 seconds is gold. Like 90 seconds? What? You don't need to, there's nothing stopping you from feeling that. Feel it and then let it go. Don't be the villain in your own story. Just feel it, watch it. If you have to do a little bit of an action towards doing something like making a tea, or does it mean setting a boundary, then do that. It doesn't have to be big woo woo stuff and you're going to the top of the mountain on a retreat and you have to look at all the emotions at the same time. And no, people don't have that time these days.
Yes. And if it persists, it usually means that there's some kind of story attached to
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Dissociating emotions from the story is the work. It's really
Yes.
actually the heart of the journey of this,
Yes.
the whole integration process, separating
Yes.
the story from the actual emotion. So it
I
is
love that.
possible. It just takes quite a bit of intention and persistence.
Absolutely. And again, easy on yourself. It's okay. I remember our my son came home very upset. He's the empath for sure. And he came home, he thinks that he's responsible for everybody's emotions at school. So I've been trying to teach him tools. And he's only 11. He came home one day so angry, slams the door, ripped all the stuff off of his bed. So I just went and sat outside his door and I let him do what he needed to do. And then I knocked on the door and he says, "What?" Usually, like, he's very sweet. He's like, "What?" I said, "Are you okay?" "Do you know what happened to me today?" "No, tell me." And he tells me the story. And I said to him, and he's all crunched up like this. And I said, you're thanks for letting me know. How can I help you? And I'm not a perfect parent, Pauline. Like I sometimes, like, I yell sometimes. But during that time, I said, you know how brave you are for just bringing that story home and telling me? I really appreciate that about you. All of his shoulders went down. I physically saw that. And I said, tell me more. How can I help you? What would you like to do? What would make you feel good at this time? "I want to eat dinner in front of the TV." And I said, okay, done.
That's beautiful. Sometimes part of the relief is just sharing something with others and
Right?
being able
Yeah.
to be in that emotion and accept that it has happened and it is okay. And it totally, like, I have a 12-year-old daughter, so I have exactly same kind of challenges that we all face when something happens at school and you have no control over that and you wish it didn't
No,
happen because it affects you so much, but the only thing you can do is share your wisdom, be there present for them and accept things as they are. It's really the most difficult thing is just to be there without trying to solve their problem or do something.
right. And then also as parents, if you're taking that for your own journey as well, you don't have to fix your emotion. You're not there to, you're a human. You don't need to fix your emotions. You observe them, as you said, you work with them for 90 seconds. Okay. Become the hero of your emotion. You don't need to be victimized by it. If you start telling your story and feeding that, your emotion might stay for 3 days, 5 days. I've gone through that. It'll,
Absolutely.
but then you can stop. There's always choice. You just have to flip the switch a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This was amazing. And in closing, I want to look further into what kind of people have you been working with, or what have you been working with them on?
Yes. So my clients have been varied as I'm also new into the holistic coaching area. I've attracted men needing career support, women, young women needing career support, and they're stepping outside of the matrix thinking and moving into more of a more flowing state. And then also working with teenagers who are going through transitions, because as you know, adolescence, we could again talk about it for 80 years. It's a tough time for many. So I'm working with adolescents with anxiety and their emotions. So teaching them how to manage their emotions by not attaching their story behind this. And so those are the types of people so far that I've worked with. And of course, women who are essentially looking for holistic well-being practices and tips, which is a passion of mine. I love helping in those areas as well.
Amazing, amazing. And it is much needed these days. All of those aspects that you just mentioned, there is no shortage of a requirement for that. So it's great to know that you're doing that work. And where can people find more about you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and my LinkedIn is my full name, Roshni-Sharma Fleming. I'm on Instagram, StillFire Healing 888. That's my handle. And then stillfirehealing.com is my website.
Amazing. Well, this was a very value-packed episode. I hope everybody got something out of it that they can use immediately and they can be inspired by. So thank you very much, Roshni, for being a guest on this episode.
Thank you so much, Pauline, for creating with me today. I always enjoy my chats with you, and I wishing you the best of success in your business and you finding flow in there too.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next time.